Howdy. What's that? We're going skiing? No. We're in beautiful Death Valley. That's right, we're in Death Valley National Park. We're in the southern section of Death Valley called Butte Valley. I'll show that to you a little bit later. And actually I'm at a cabin. It's a one of several cabins that are in the Death Valley area, as well as the Panamint Mountains. That's public domain. Anybody can use them. And let's take a look at this one. It's called Stella's Cabin. Now, why is it called Stella's Cabin, you may ask? It's a long story, but let's go take a look inside first, huh? And here's the Lucky Horseshoe. Welcome. Oh, and take a look at this here. Warning. Footpads, thieves, and dance house loungers must get out of Lake City and stay, otherwise hang! By the way, what is a footpad? Anyway, welcome to Stella's Cabin. It's a nice, cozy looking little place, isn't it? Now you may be saying to yourself, cozy? What's this? Well, actually this was an old mining cabin. The first person to actually live here, or maybe the second person to actually live here, was a guy named Carl Mengele. And Carl Mengele was an old prospector. He was born in 1844. He originally lived in San Bernardino, California. He tried farming and fishing. He gave that up and came out here to Panamint Valley and Death Valley area, and got his first mining stake in 1912 over actually in a place called Mengele Pass, which is named after him, just south of here, a couple miles. 1924, he came over to this area, the Anvil Springs area, and made the claim here. He originally called this place the Greater View Springs, and everybody wonders if he's the one that built the place, but it's thought that actually Mormon settlers who were here in the 1850s actually probably built this cabin, or the bulk of it, and then Carl Mengele came along and then did his thing. So let's take a look at the rest of the cabin here. Well, one thing you might notice is it's got the wood stove. You're asking, what, a wood stove in Death Valley? Yeah, it seems kind of, I don't know, oxymoronic, but it gets pretty cold here in Death Valley in the winter, in this area of Death Valley. We're in a section on the south end of Death Valley called Butte Valley, and I'll show that to you in a little bit. It's about 4,400 feet where I'm at right now, and so it gets pretty cold in the winter. In the summer, it's a little bit cooler. When the temperature is 120 down on the valley floor, it could be about 105 here, so a little bit cooler, right? But everything that you need for your little homey home when you come here. Got a little sink, and yes, that's running water. There's actually a little spring here. It's not a big flow of water, but a little bit of water nonetheless. And look at this here. When people come, sometimes they'll leave little cans of food or boxes of food for other people to use if they need it. You got your hot and spicy menudo, and of course you got your refried beans, some northern beans, chucky soup, some corn. Oh, look at this. Sardines, I bet. Let's see. Oh yeah, yummy, yummy. I checked all these cans, and these cans are all still within their expiration date, except for one of them, which I think is actually, surprisingly, sparkling water. And Mike and Danny, not me, left some Uncle Ben's boil and bag rice. Thank you very much, Mike and Danny. So, people might be asking, well, what do you do for lights in here? Well, do it the old-fashioned way. Candles. Old newspaper clippings, I'll show you those in a second. And got the old refrigerator, ice box, whatever you want to call it. Of course, it's not working because there's no electricity here, but there's a little bit more food in here, food that the mice can't get to. There's some salt, some plates. And right here you got the old log books starting from 1999, but of course this cabin's been used even farther back than this. I saw one of these entries in here. A guy came by and he said that he had first come through here in 1954, but he didn't stop because somebody was living here. But then again, he came back here in 2001, I think is when the entry was, and he came back here and stayed. So it's interesting reading through these logbooks here and seeing the drawings, sometimes what people put in there, and the old entries. Pretty interesting stuff. On top of the ice box here, got another plate, a machete, I don't know, to protect yourself from the wild burros. Little first aid kit, emergency blanket. American flag. There actually were two American flags. One is flying right now. Here's the other one. And the custom here in these cabins is when you arrive, you put the flag up so people can see it from far distance and know that somebody's here, and then they won't come and bother you. And then you take the flag down and when you leave. Some old wine glasses here, I see. Oh, look at this, medieval times from Baltimore, Washington. Huh. What do you know? Somebody left a nice little chair, a little love seat. And then the table for eating, candlelight dinners. And this is the most current logbook. People have been through here. The last person was here actually the day that I got here. USMC, Semper Fi Marine. What you'll notice too in these logbooks is when, here's November of 2018, you'll find that there's lots of entries in the fall, spring, and autumn. Fall, winter, and spring. Let's start over. But not a whole lot in the summer. Gee, I wonder why. Here's one from July. Somebody crazy like me. Windows, of course, don't block out all the wind, but at least you got some break from the wind. So this is Stella's Cabin, is what it's called. And why is it called Stella's Cabin when Carl Mengele is the one who really shaped it up? Well, let me show you here. After Carl Mengele died, the cabin changed hands a number of times. Finally got into the hands of Asa Russell, who had a camp out to the south of us called Russell Camp. And then eventually in 1962, he deeded it over to Clint and Stella Anderson. And here's their mining claim. And they called it, in honor of Carl Mengele, the Greater View Springs. So Carl and Stella lived here for quite a while, and then in '73, Stella died. I'm sorry, Carl died, and Stella continued to live here until the late '70s, I think. Anyway, she moved to Trona after that, and here's a picture actually of Clint and Stella, right there. You'll notice some of the newspaper clippings talk about Trona. And that's where Stella eventually moved to. Hi, guys. And you can see right over here. story about Stella from 1976 from the newspaper. So anyway, Carl and Clint and Stella had the cabin. Clint died. Stella stayed here. She moved to Trona, and then after that, the cabin was pretty much abandoned. Now, Death Valley at that time was just a national monument, and these were all private stakes. And then Death Valley became a national park. But in that time ensuing, some of these cabins that were vacant, volunteers would come and they would keep them up, and then that would allow people to use them from time to time when they're exploring the Death Valley and Panamint Mountain and Panamint Valley area. And so that's what this cabin is right here, Stella's slash Mengele cabin. There's another one over here called Russell Camp, and then there's another one right to the north of us, about a half a mile, called Geologist Cabin, which has a nice view actually of striped Butte, which I'll show you in a second. So let's go take a look at the outside. The cabin, stone cabin, was actually built into the hill partially, and as you can see, corrugated metal for the roof and all that. There was a little work shed right there, a little fire pit for cooking. Just think about that, all your amenities are outside for cooking and all that. And this was actually in an area where there's a spring, so they had water, as you saw in the sink there. And then there was a little attic for storing stuff. Now, Carl Mengele, when he lived here, at one point in time, he built a guest quarters. That's right, a guest quarters for the occasional guest that he had come over. And so let's go take a look at Carl's guest house. Nothing fancy, just a square one-room cabin. And if you want to play some darts, got a dartboard right there. But there's no darts. Oh well, somebody will have to bring those when they come next. Anyway, who'd think that you'd have a guest house attached to a cabin in the middle of Death Valley, huh? Now, this cabin sits above a place called Butte Valley. Let's go take a look at it. Butte Valley, the floor of Butte Valley sits about 4,000 feet in elevation. Like I said, we're about 4,400 feet right now, a couple hundred feet above, and it looks out towards the east. That's the Amargosa range of mountains right there. And then over here, behind us to the west, this is the Panamint Mountains. So if you're familiar with Death Valley is sandwiched in between two mountain ranges, and then the Panamints are on the west side. Over here, just to the north of the cabin here, you got striped Butte. Kind of pretty, isn't it? And that Geologist Cabin that I told you about is just right over there on the other side, about a half mile. Now you may ask, how to get here? It looks kind of neat. Well, getting here is not really for the faint of heart. Actually, if you're just using a passenger car, forget it. There's two ways to get here. You've got an entrance from the south and an access from the north. Both of them really, they need a high clearance vehicle. Coming from the north, you can get by without four-wheel drive. It'd just be really, really bumpy. Coming from the south, from Mengele Pass, you actually do need four-wheel drive, and you need to be an experienced four-wheel drive driver, because you're coming through Goler Pass or Goler Wash, and then up and over Mengele Pass, and it's very, very, very rugged, and there's some steep technical spots in a couple areas. But take a look at the road coming from the north. That road right there winds through the mountains. It comes off of West Side Road on the west side of the Badwater Basin, and it's about a 30-mile drive, a little bit less than that, and very bumpy in spots, very washboarded road. West Side Road itself, you could probably drive in a sedan, a two-wheel drive vehicle, but I still wouldn't recommend it because you really have to go very slow, and there are some spots where there's rocks and it's kind of rutted, so you might bottom out. But that road winds and slinks and finally gets here. But it is a pretty fun drive. So anyway, this is Butte Valley. Striped Butte behind me. And Stella's cabin. If we can, we'll go over to Russell's camp if nobody's there, and Geologist Cabin, somebody's there, so maybe they'll leave and we can get over there. But anyway, welcome to Butte Valley in the southern section of Death Valley. Stella's cabin, and I'll see you later. Well, howdy. Welcome to another secret spot in Death Valley.